Hello again everyone from Tokyo, Japan, and welcome back to Japan Vintage Camera, where it's a very beautiful Friday afternoon here in Tokyo. A nice sunny day, not so cold. Normally on a day like today I would like to shoot my videos outdoors, but I've been really busy today. Lots of work, lots of cameras to get shipped and things like that, and I finally got most of that done, and I've got a little bit of time here, and I figured I would go ahead and use it to make a video. And today I've got a really good subject for my video. This is the Pentax MV-1 SLR camera from 1980. But before I start, for those of you who are new to my channel, I sell vintage Japanese cameras like this Pentax in my online store, japanvintagecamera.com. I have an Etsy store which is also called Japan Vintage Camera. So if you'd like to buy this Pentax or another vintage camera, please visit one of my stores. I'll post links to my stores in the description below the video. So the Pentax MV-1, as I said, was released in 1980, and this was, I guess, near one of the high watermarks for consumer SLR photography around the world. The MV-1 is a compact 35mm SLR camera with automatic operation and a detachable lens system. So this camera is was designed to be made easy to use. Pretty much anyone can use this camera. All you have to do really is to turn it on, wind the film, set the aperture, and focus and shoot. It's quite easy to use. There isn't a lot of there isn't a long learning curve involved in using a camera like this, and because these cameras were quite simple and you were able to fit professional quality lenses to them, they were very popular. Now, the story of the compact 35mm SLR camera, of course, goes back to the Olympus OM1, where they decided to take a different approach to the professional 35mm camera. The workhorse of the day of the late 50s, 60s, and into the 70s were the Nikon or Nikon cameras, the F and F2 models, and these were very rugged, highly engineered, fully mechanical, wonderful machines, but they were quite large and heavy. And though these were quite suitable for professional photographers whose job it was to carry these cameras around and take photographs with them, they weren't exactly consumer friendly. The full manual operation, it was fairly common for most cameras up to a certain point in history, but by the in the 1960s, automatic cameras became quite popular in the more compact rangefinder designs and things like that. But it wasn't until the 1970s, especially the mid and late 70s, where these features were added to SLR cameras. So, of course, the original Olympus OM progressed into a large variety of models, and with increased automation as time went on. Pentax's answer to the Olympus OM1 was their own MX, which was an outstanding camera, and one which is a very, has a cult following today and is quite popular with film photography fans. And the Olympus OM1 and the Pentax MX, I really love these cameras. They're as small as a lot of the earlier rangefinder cameras, despite their added complexity. And they just caught on. The size and the handling and the controls on the cameras made them easier to operate than the more professional level cameras on the market. And also, being smaller, compact, and lighter, they were much more, I guess, friendly for casual photographers or tourists. And as technology improved through the 70s, and it made huge leaps and bounds during that time, the camera manufacturers were able to add more automated features to their cameras. And despite, you might think that adding increased automation would make cameras more expensive, actually the opposite was true. For example, a quality mechanical winding watch tends to be more expensive than a quartz watch. It requires, the moving parts require a lot of effort to make, and on top of making them and assembling, you still have to adjust them, which is a kind of time-consuming process. And setting up and adjusting the shutter precisely in a mechanically controlled camera takes some time. Whereas with an electronically controlled camera, it can be done by machine and assembled in much less time, and requires far less occasional adjustment or repair than a fully mechanical camera. So the MX was released by Pentax, and then there were, the MV was released, and then this was the MV-1, and then this was replaced by the MG. So quite a an interesting variety of cameras. And all of them were outstanding cameras. A lot of people really prefer the mechanical simplicity of the original MX. But for people who want a camera with a similar appearance and a similar profile, which uses the same lens and can take the same quality photos, a camera like the MV-1 is a good choice. So let's go ahead and take a look at the features, controls, and functions of the Pentax MV. Starting from the top, we have the film rewind knob with a pop-out lever, which makes it easier to rewind the film. If you pull up, that releases the film door and exposes the inside of the camera, the film chamber, and the shutter and such. Another interesting feature about this camera, it had the more pro-level, ability to take replaceable or interchangeable film back, so you could add a data back to this camera, something which wasn't an option on the earlier MV model. Below the rewind dial here, we have the film speed setting dial, and you simply lift it up and turn it in order to change it to the appropriate speed. And what you do is you just turn this dial till the number matches the film speed of the film you have loaded into the camera. On the top here we have a hot shoe for mounting a flash, and it has an accessory pin for using a dedicated Pentax flash. If you use the dedicated flash, it will work automatically with this camera, but if you're using an aftermarket or more modern flash, you can use it on this camera. Just follow the instructions on the flash. Over here we have the shutter release button, which accepts a standard cable release. We don't have a shutter speed dial because this camera doesn't allow you to manually set the shutter speeds. It has an automatic dial, a 100x, and a bulb setting. The auto is what you would use this camera in most cases. Just set it into the automatic setting, and what you would do is you would use the aperture, and inside the viewfinder on the left there's an LED light meter system, and so long as the green is lit up in the LED, then you have the adjustments are set to where you can get a proper exposure. By turning the dial back one switch, that moves to the 100x speed, and that is the flash sync speed for this camera, which is 1/100th of a second. And you can also use the speed manually. So if the battery goes dead, you can still operate the camera by putting it in the 1/100th of a second setting, and then adjusting your aperture according to how much light you have. And then of course we have the bulb setting, and this will hold open the shutter so long as you push the shutter release button. And this is handy for things like astrophotography or shooting at night without a flash. You can make very long exposures, and you can get pretty interesting results from this. And over here we have the film winding and shutter charging lever, and has a nice plastic tip on it, nice and smooth, and very smooth and easy to use. I like how it feels. A nice, wonderful mechanical feel to it, despite the fact that this is an electronically controlled camera. On the back here we have a film card holder, and even today when you buy film it tends to come in cardboard boxes, and this was considered a professional feature back in the day when it was introduced, and was only available on the more high-end cameras, but then eventually it became standard equipment on more and more cameras, and pretty much all the Nikon, the F2, F3, the Canon F1, and so on featured these, and you simply put the top of the film card in the back. More pros who use more than one camera and only one kind of film often would put a sticker on the back, which you didn't remove, and whatever particular camera you were using was dedicated to a particular kind of film. On the bottom here we have the battery chamber. This camera uses normal LR44 batteries. We have a standard 1/4" tripod socket. This is the release button, which you depress to rewind the film. And then we have a access cover here for adding a power winder, and these are the electric contacts for the power winder. Now, compared to the original MV, this is one of the features which was added to make the camera, more professional looking, or at least, the pros in those days were using motor drives and power winders on their cameras, and this was, it wasn't really a necessary thing, but like accessories for your car or accessories for other things, by having a camera which you could accessorize, it might appeal to a larger market. The other pro features which were added to this camera over the MV-1 were the addition of a self-timer and the card holder, which I just mentioned a moment ago. On the back here, we have the viewfinder window, and this camera has a nice large viewfinder, and I believe it has 90 or 92% coverage, so it shows pretty much almost everything you're going to see as you're looking through. It's nice and bright. There are dovetails on either side, which allow you to add an eye cup or to add a diopter adjustment lens. This camera didn't have a diopter adjuster on it. On the front of the camera, I already pointed out the self-timer. Here we have the lever for releasing the lens, and this lens here happens to be what is called a K-mount lens, and one of the most popular. Pentax made a large variety of lenses, and that's one of the great things about these. I love the quality of the Pentax lenses. I say the same thing about the Olympus. I think the Olympus lenses are slightly more compact, especially the faster or more wide angle lenses. But the Pentax lenses, especially ones like this 50mm f1.4, they're really wonderful performers and they're quite inexpensive. And unlike Olympus, Pentax didn't really get into the really esoteric lenses, these really wild, limited production ones. The 40mm f.2 or the 21mm f2 or some of these other lenses which they produced, which didn't sell well when they released them and now are ridiculously expensive. I'm shocked when I see the price of some of these OM lenses on the market nowadays. The 40mm f2 is now going upwards of $1,000 in some places, when there was a time when you could find them every day for less than $200. With the Pentax lenses, there are a few, some are more common than others, but mainly they are shooting lenses, and they're a really good value and they're really excellent performers. So weaknesses in this camera, there aren't really many weaknesses. The only issue which I come across with these cameras tends to be related to battery corrosion. So a lot of these people, people who own these, they bought the camera and then used it, put it in a closet, maybe bought a newer camera or eventually a digital camera, and just left the batteries in here, and the batteries corrode, and the fumes from the corroding batteries can get inside the camera and cause issues. Sometimes you can simply clean the battery contacts, put in new batteries, and the camera will work fine. Sometimes, it becomes a brick, and there isn't much you can do with it. But basically, it's quite a reliable camera, and more reliable than some of the similar Pentax cameras. There are, the Super A series and a few other ones, which were, I would say, less well made and more susceptible to the corrosion from the batteries, or being in an environment like here in Japan where it's really hot and humid in the summer and very cold and dry in the winter. And people here, they don't, especially in the countryside, don't believe in using the heater very much in the summer, or air conditioner in the summer, or a heater in the winter. So everything in their house gets really hot in the summer, and then it gets really cold in the winter. And this isn't a very good environment for electronic devices. If you live in a more temperate place, these things will last forever and not give you any issues. Now, this camera is a really wonderful camera for someone who wants to shoot a very accurate, easy to use camera which requires just a minimal amount of knowledge. And basically the only knowledge you need to have with this camera is an understanding of the aperture system. For example, a wider aperture lets in more light and will allow a faster shutter speed and a narrower depth of field. A smaller aperture will have much greater depth of field but will allow less light through the lens, so the shutter will stay open longer. What most people do is try to find a balance in between where you get the optimal depth of field, the optimal amount of sharpness, and a shutter speed which isn't too fast or too slow. And a camera like this will kind of teach you, as you use it, what works. So that's it for my video about the Pentax MV-1. I plan to be making more videos, and I've been working on a video. I'm not sure if anyone would be interested. Maybe you can let me know if you would be. A lot of people have been asking me about what it's like to live in Japan and why I moved here, and I was thinking about making a video like this. If you'd like to see it, please let me know in the comment section below, and I'll go ahead and get started on it. If you would like to see such a video. If you don't, you can tell me, hell no, you don't want to see it. That's fine also. I plan to make some more videos over the next couple of weeks. So if you'd like to see them, please come back or subscribe. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope you tune in again soon.